It's been 1 year since a plane crashed in Fort Smith, killing 6 people. There was only one survivor that day. The plane was taking a crew of workers to a diamond mine. It went down and caught fire near the town's airport. Today, we remember those who were lost and learn how the community is moving forward after the tragedy. Good evening, I'm Megan Roberts. There were 7 people on that Northwestern Air Lease Plane, 2 crew members and 5 passengers on their way to work at the N.W.T diamond mine. Community members whose presence is missed by family and friends. Carla Ulrich tells us how Fort Smith is remembering them.
I think that our community comes together really well when tragedy strikes, and this was a big tragedy for our community.
It was a day that started like any other, but it quickly became one that changed the lives of families, both within and beyond this close-knit community. Dana Ferguson is the mayor of Fort Smith. She remembers January 23rd, 2024 as a solemn one, when news of the plane crash tore through the community. By sunset, the reality of the loss was clear, leaving families of those now gone and the community devastated. Today, residents and families are still grieving, but Ferguson says Fort Smith is known for pulling together when it counts.
It was a very emotional and overwhelming experience. We do come together very well. We do hold each other up very well. We do support each other very well, and we are an empathetic, compassionate community.
Tonight, the town is honoring the lives lost with a candlelit memorial at 6:30 at the Anglican Church. Ferguson says the church bells will ring at 6:42 for 6 minutes for the 6 lives lost 1 year ago.
I feel lost. Losing him, it's really hard because I don't have my friend, my husband, to help me feel okay.
Bev Chapelski and her children experienced the tragedy in a deeply personal way. Her husband of 20 years, Joel Tetso, was one of the 6 people who lost their lives that day. She says this past year has been one of profound loss for her and their 3 children. Chapelski says her husband was a devoted father, provider for the family, and was an avid outdoorsman who spent as much time as he could with their children when he was on days off.
Usually I would be used to coming home with like 3 or 4 friends, and my dad would be here, and I would ask him before if maybe if he can start skidoos after school, and we would go out in our trail skidooing. But now I don't really go skidooing anymore.
Thank you for my son Brody and the nomination for the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge.
Chapelski says the grief comes in waves, but she focuses on gratitude and the love she has for her children to help heal. She's also grateful that her last day with her husband was a break from their normal routine when Tetso asked Chapelski to accompany him to the store, and it turned into an impromptu date.
We had gone for coffee, just him and I, at the N.W.T, kind of fancy coffee. In my stocking at Christmas, he got me a coffee card, gift card for there, and then I bought him coffee with it, so we kind of laughed at that. But that was kind of our last date. The kids were in school, and we just kind of hung out and enjoyed each other's company, and so it's like a hug, he still wanted to hang out.
Chapelski says she and her children talk about their father daily, that he is missed every single day, and his love is still felt in their home. She says the support from the community has been overwhelming, especially from her hockey family, the Fort Smith Fury, from helping her with chores at home to offering support for her kids' extracurricular activities. It's been an incredibly healing experience, and for that, Chapelski says she is incredibly grateful. Carla Ulrich, CBC News, Fort Smith.
As you've heard, 6 people died in the crash. Let's take a moment to remember them through the eyes of their friends and families.
Well, Howie is greatly missed. I know that. We think about him every day, and I see that a lot of people, his friends online, also think about him every day. He's greatly missed because he had this awesome presence about him. It was like a healing presence because he was always funny and he knew how to cheer up people, and it was really hard to deal with that being taken away from you without expecting it to go away.
Diane Balsley loved her family passionately. That's what her niece wrote on social media. She says whenever she met up with her Auntie Diane, they would laugh so hard they gasped for air and got tears in their eyes. Deep belly laughs, her niece says, the ones that are good for the soul. Diane's niece wrote that Diane's family loved her dearly, and the heartache over her loss is very real.
Birthday to you.
Joel was maybe the anchor for keeping us grounded. He devoted his time to our family and kids. I'd be working and come home at 5 o'clock and there'd be 12 kids skidooing outside, and he'd have a fire going, and I used to tease him and call it a daddy daycare. But after school, the kids would come here and play. Joel had built a tree house for the kids. We had skidoos, zip line, beautiful trails in the back, and so he's missed terribly.
Flying time to Fort Chipewyan will be approximately 1 hour and 30 minutes, and then it's about another 30 minutes from Fort Chip to Fort Smith. My name is Pozzolo, and I have the pleasure of flying with Captain Paul.
Pozzola Alba dreamed of being a pilot, and that is what brought him to Fort Smith. His parents say he was co-piloting the plane when it crashed. They say the past year has been traumatic and full of grief. Tony and Carla Alba say the family remembers Pozzolo as loving, generous, and a thoughtful son who was a natural leader. They say he was friendly, he never got mad, and he was always smiling. There was one more passenger and one crew member who lost their lives in that crash. Details about exactly what happened are still unclear at this point. The Transportation Safety Board is investigating. It doesn't have an exact timeline for when that'll be finished, but it says generally investigations like this take about 1 year and 4 months. The TSB says this investigation, though, could take longer because of its complexity and some delays. It says the plane's wreckage is still being stored in Edmonton at this point. The sole survivor of the crash is Kurt McDonald. On that day 1 year ago, he left his young son to go to work. His father, MLA Jay McDonald, says Kurt was just finishing parental leave, and the flight that crashed was Kurt's first back at work after his son's birth. Jay McDonald shares what happened that day from his perspective and tells us how his son is doing.
You know, I was in Vancouver at Roundup. We had a big day planned, lots of meetings, and I was having my morning coffee, and the phone rang, and said that there was a flight had gone down, Northwestern's flight to Divek, and from that point, you sort of, I don't know if you have a reflex that makes you numb in the moment, but there was really no news that came with that initial call other than the plane was down, and so for the next 3 hours, I basically stood there holding my cell phone, waiting for news to, I knew my son was on the flight, and just waiting to see what the outcome was. When I finally got the call, it was a devastating phone call to hear that I knew everyone on the plane, that we had lost everyone, that there was one survivor, that it was Kurt, and I felt obviously very, very happy that my son survived. At the same time, I felt a lot of guilt that he survived, and so it was a really challenging day. He's on the road to recovery. I mean, this is the physical trauma, the emotional trauma are certainly things that you don't I don't know that you ever really get the emotional trauma away, but I think, Kurt's really strong. He's got great support. His son, my grandson Ari, is a tremendous light in all of our lives and in his life. And I think, Ari really keeps him grounded and focused. And, time, he will heal in time. And, I'm super proud of him. He's been dedicated and, he's really shown a lot of strength in his recovery as he works toward that. It's a tough day. I'm thinking about all the friends and family back home that are, today's going to be tough. It brings some memories back of all the folks that we lost, and, kind of brings back some of the trauma and the tough things that we went through last year. And at the same time, I'm thinking of my son and how grateful, that we are to still have him with us.
As you heard, there's a memorial service tonight in Fort Smith. It starts at 6:30 p.m. at the St. John's Anglican Church. The church bells will ring for 6 minutes at 6:42 tonight to honor the lives lost. The crash happened at 6:42 a.m. There's also mental health help if you need it. There are options through the Northwest Territories Health and Social Services Authority website, and you can call 811 if you need to talk to somebody immediately.